Hey
All right.
everyone, welcome to Flex 13 week. We finally made it to the end here, and the rest of the regular season prizes will be awarded, and I'm getting super excited. What about you, Sean?
Oh, super excited. I mean, Flex Week 13. What better week can we ask for?
I agree. I just want to make reference to this jersey behind me. Josh Gordon, of course, just got reinstated. Some of you may not know, but Josh Gordon holds a record for two straight 200-yard plus games consecutively. In those two games, he legit had 495 receiving yards. That's like half of 1,000-yard receiving year in two games.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the guy was good. I don't know if he was on the cough syrup or what. But in those years for the Browns, he was one of the best wide receivers that ever wear the Browns. So,
I picked him up in the Dynasty last week.
right on. Oh, let's get started.
All right, let's look. Let's look at some divisional rankings right now. I mean, just looking at that Maple Leaf division. I mean, look at that. You have Storm, you have Green Lightning, and the six. You know, they're all 7-5, hoping one of them can only one of them win the division here. And then you have Billsy Bob 5-7. He's like, shit, I lost last week in the last 4 weeks, where he actually had a shot to win the division also. But I know who I'm going to predict to win the division, which we can talk about in a second. What's your thoughts on this division?
I think it's three teams there that I think are good, but wish they were better. I'm sure all three of those teams thought they were going to have a much better year. I mean, we know Lucas sold a lot of picks at the beginning. Milan had a lot of picks to start the year, if you recall, and I think Krista also made a few draft pick moves too. So, and the reality is, only one of these teams might be making the playoffs. So I think it's three teams that wish they were performing better. That's what I see.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Next up, we got the red and white. I'm getting some feedback from you, by the way. So you have the red and white division. Obviously you're the only one currently in the division. Ranked to make the playoffs. I mean, I really think you're gonna win the playoffs. I think if you even lose, you have the tiebreaker with the age crew, and everybody else. I mean, who really cares about them?
Yeah, no, I would probably agree. I don't think Brian has much of a chance to make the playoffs, and yeah, for myself, I've already locked it up, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, and then next up you have the American division. I mean, you're probably gonna get three teams from this division. You're making the playoffs. You have Life's a Mitch, who's more than likely gonna win points for Deuce Bombers, who's ranked first in the division and first in the league. I mean, he's getting $100. Life's a Mitch is getting 50. I'm just hanging out in the middle in between them, hoping to make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, remember it's 40 American, so it's 80 and 40. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I actually think there's three teams making the playoffs here, and I think Deuce Bombers is the biggest pretender out of the three, to be honest.
yeah, I can see that. I think his team, he had a pretty lucky schedule. I mean, he has 70 less points against than me. I mean, he has a lot less than Life's a Mitch, almost 200. I mean, you still have Templars who has 2,800 points against. I mean, is 111, but that's a lot of points against compared to the rest of the division.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree.
And next up, you have the international, and I know I make fun of them every week. Yeah, I say it's the worst division, but I mean, they might have two teams make the playoffs.
Yeah, they could. Like seems like Busan's winning a fair amount of the tie breaks. I think Swahino's pretty much done, and he has a tough one against Adrian. And I think Always Shitty wins the division, to be honest. And Always Shitty's had a pretty good LOC career since he's come over. So there is good owners in this division, and potentially a new international division owner coming over, and possibly Finn, who is Eric's brother. So we'll have to see, or Vladimir, who is Dusan's brother. So I'm excited to see what happens in tier two too.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing, at least, I assume both of them are international. I mean, Elian's leaving, so we don't have to make any pretenders to be international. So no Canadians or Americans.
Agree.
All right, let's hop right into the games. I mean, first up, we're gonna talk about some game that really nobody cares about at this point. It's Templars and True North.
Yeah, but you know what? This is one where you and I as commish have to be watching because these two teams, let's face it, they have vested interest to lose because if they lose, they get a higher draft pick, right? Because if Templars beats Chris, Chris is going to get a higher draft pick because he's going to be the worst team. So we're going to have to watch that lineups are set between these two. But you can see Robert, he's lost 10 in a row. He's lost 12 in a row in Dynasty. I'm never picking Robert to win at this point. Chris is an established owner. I'm hoping he can beat Templars here. I'm going with Chris.
I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna go with Templars just because. Why the hell not? I mean, one of us at least picked Templars the last, 3 weeks, I think, and we've been wrong every time. And let's try it again. Let's see if he can actually help us out here. Next up, let's go switch over to Ellie Island versus Deuce Bombers. Um, I don't think Ellie Island's going to win, but I think it has the potential of a sleeper here, of an upset. I mean, she's not that great, but I mean, NFL is projecting it to be close at least. I think Deuce Bomber wins, but I wouldn't be shocked if Ellie Island actually wins this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm looking at Deuce Bomber's lineup. I mean, Mike Evans is on the bye, Shaq Thompson, Teddy Bridgewater, so he obviously has to go with Cousins. Dalvin Cook is obviously nursing a lot of injuries. James Conner could still be out with COVID. I'm actually picking Ellie Island to beat Deuce Bombers here and expose Deuce for being the biggest pretender in the playoffs as the number one seed.
I mean, that would be a shocker if he lost, especially heading into the playoffs, losing to a player who doesn't even set their lineup anymore. It's possible. Like I said, it's possible, and it would be. I think if Deuce loses, he should pay the league money for that loss. Next up, we have a Canadian guy versus the Architect. I know one person who's definitely watching this game. This would be your wife. Your wife's definitely watching, rooting for the Architect to somehow win this game. She needs Brendan to get into the consolation prize. Even if he gets one spot up, I mean, it's one spot. It's a pick up.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And I think Canadian guy, let's face it, the centerpiece of his team is Mahomes. And he's playing that Denver defense it's a Sunday nighter, so I have a feeling it's going to be fairly close. Denver will play him fairly well. So for the Architect, it's going to come down to Kyler Murray, but he's playing that Rams defense. So unfortunately, I don't see the Architect doing much of anything. And I think the Architect wanted this to happen. He knows he gave away his round one. He didn't officially tank, but he kind of did. And I'm going with Norm easily in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Norm's going to win. And it's one of those things where he didn't tank. He just played, in my opinion, smart fantasy football for next year.
That's true, and I don't think there's any rules violation whatsoever.
None. I agree. Next up, we have the points for champion versus Billsy Bob. And I honestly don't think Billsy Bob has a shot of winning this week. I just think Life's a Mitch team is in every position better. I actually have Life's a Mitch at least making the championship game. But as we were talking about earlier, before we started, it all comes down to all your matchups, your team matchups, and who you're playing in the playoffs. But I definitely have Life's a Mitch in this win.
Yeah, I do too. I think Indianapolis defense is going to play Deshaun Watson much better than they lost to Tennessee, so they're going to want to play a lot better. And, Tennessee, Cleveland for Tannehill, I think it's going to be a battle of the run game there, but I have a feeling Cleveland's going to win, so Tannehill will be throwing the ball more. And I also agree with you. I think Life's a Mitch. I have him as one of the big four, in my opinion, of seriously taking home the plaque this year. And, Billsy Bobs is playing for pride at this point, and he seems to be playing for pride every year at this point.
Yeah, but at least he's a great owner, so he has that going.
He is. I'm just giving him a hard time, and I have to.
No, I understand. So next up, we have the guy who was always talking about the CFL, and let's face it, nobody in this league cares. I know you're wearing the BC Lions shirt, but let's be honest, nobody cares about the BC Lions. Um, and honestly, I don't think he wins this game. I think Fallen Misfit has it. Even if Fallen Misfit's rookie running backs that screwed him last week don't show up this week, I still think he has a shot to win this week against BC Lions.
Yeah, BC Lions. I could care less either. I live in BC, but I have this jersey from a Lions game I went to probably 15 years ago. I don't even know when it was. And yeah, nobody cares about the CFL stand. And I'm hoping the XFL actually makes the CFL go under, to be honest. And, for you, Sean, I think this is just a cruise control game heading into the playoffs. But I also think it's a game where, you hope to put up some decent sized points after what happened last week, because you were kind of embarrassed by Deuce Bombers, and
Yeah.
he took control of the American division, and you have to win this game. And can you imagine if you lost this game going into the playoffs? You would be looking like a big pretender.
Oh yeah.
I think you're a competitive team, and I think you're going to win this one easily against them.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put it out there that I think if Deuce Bomber and I were playing for the league, I think I would beat him this week. Next up, let's talk about a prediction I've been making for the last couple weeks, and I'm gonna cry about it because if my prediction was wrong. Suze got her 60th win. She got lucky. Let's leave it at that. She got lucky, but she got her 60th win. Congrats, and you're not winning this week.
I don't think so either. I mean, at least she's 6-6, and bright future kind of pursues 2-1s, 2-2s, 2-3s, 2-4s. I look at her team though. I don't really see like solid 5 for keepers, to be honest. She's kind of maybe been that one and done champion. She's always been there in the playoffs, but this year different story, obviously. And for me, I'm honestly, I can't wait to play a competitive game, because I've been playing all these easy opponents near the end. I'm kind of getting bored. I'm yawning here. I'm like, oh my God, let me have a close game. And I'm concerned about the playoffs because, like I said on the chat, week 14, it's Josh Allen versus Pittsburgh or Baker versus Baltimore. So who do I start there? And that could be critical. But yeah, I win this one easily in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, don't count your horses before your eggs before they hatch, because you might play Life Submitch and you might lose that game.
Oh, I'm not discrediting anyone in the playoffs. I think, I just can't wait to play a competitive game. And I'm hoping to avoid Life Submits. Adrian would be another. And even, Shitty to some degree.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So next up, we have the 12th man, who's in 12th place, playing Milan in the 6th, who's in 6th place. I mean, I don't know how much better we can get than there's your number is your actual ranking in the league. But
yeah, the NFL.com projections are kind of messed up though, and that's why I think it's solidified. We look at head to head. Whoever, if they played each other, that's who wins the division. So in the Six's case, if he wins and Storm wins over Green Lightning, the Six wins the division because he beat Krista earlier this year. And I don't care how NFL.com maneuvers it, that's who would get crowned champion. So, I just want to throw that out there to everybody. And then if the head-to-head is tied, it comes down to points for. And I think this game, even though it's 12 versus 6 according to NFL.com, I think it's going to be close. Brian can get Julio back. It looks like Jacobs would be on a pitch count if he does come back. Ayuk came back, for the 6th. He's got Derek Carr, who's been kind of a disappointment. Zeke came over. He's been a disappointment. I mean, he found a winner in Gibson. I still say that I'm going with Brian here. I think he pulls off the upset, and Milan has a very disappointing year, and Brian forces possibly a ton of tiebreakers.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the 6. I just like the 6 wide receivers better. I think the running backs are more of a wash. I mean, are the Eagles going to actually run the ball with Sanders? And then, I mean, the Eagles' defense, for what they were, they looked pretty good against the run and pass last week. So, I mean, if the Eagles' offense can start doing things, but that defense is not bad the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, even Aaron Jones might be, only getting 10 to 12 points. So I'm going to go with the 6.
It's going to be a good one to watch, though.
I agree. It's going to be a very good match to watch. And I can't wait to see who wins. And just for the tiebreakers, I kind of hope the 12th man wins, but I think the 6 has it. Next up, we have Sohinho and the Age Crew playing. I mean, they're ranked close, but I think the Age Crew has. I think Age Crew just has a better team, all in all, versus Sohinho's team. I mean, he has Glennon playing as quarterback for Jacksonville. One, any Jacksonville quarterback, you kind of like, should I actually be playing this guy? 2, it's Glennon. 3, his running backs aren't that really good. I mean, Laird, Pollard, Henderson. I mean, is Akers going to take over some reps there? I mean, but he does have Tyreek Hill. I mean, that is a plus. I mean, Tyreek Hill can get 250 points in the first yards in the first quarter again against Denver. Highly unlikely because I think they're going to actually run the ball this week, but it's possible. But I still think I just like the H Crew's team better.
Yeah, you know what? People don't talk about it much, but let's not forget Eric was in last year's final, right? So he did finish second place. And the funny thing is he didn't pay the money, so obviously he didn't get anything, and that's the shitty thing about it. And if you look, he's won 5 in a row to even put himself in this point. So, we always say the international's trash. He beat some good teams in that 5-game winning streak. But I think you're right. Adrian is just a deeper team. I mean, look at that. The wide receiver trio of Thielen, McLaurin, and Claypool. I mean, that's solid. I mean, there's not much better wide receiver trios out there in the LOC. And I think Adrian's in that conversation of the big 4 if he makes the playoffs. And I think he easily cruises past Sohinho in this one.
I agree. So before the game of the week, we have Sabatica Spartans versus Too Good for a Name. I mean, I guess always Shitty's his name, but but I mean, I think this is actually gonna be a close match. I mean, you got 2 versus playing 9, but I really don't care about that. I actually think Too Good for a Name just takes the win. I just think it's his team better. I mean, even looking at the projections, you have Too Good for a Name projected to win by 50 points, a little less than 50 at this very second. He does have Newton, though. I mean, if Newton's not running the ball, he's not scoring any points. I mean, he does have Aguilar, who's doing better when he's not an Eagle. But, like I said, I think Too Good for a Name wins this easily.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's going to be a lot closer than what most people think. I see Newton has to be dressed for Shitty this week. I think that's going to be a concern. He's got Duke Johnson, whose role could be reduced because David Johnson's coming back from that concussion, I believe. And Cam Akers is starting to come on Doosan's side. I know even NFL.com only has 5 points for him there. But he's starting to come on. He had a big game of late. So, and what about Kalen Balaj, also running in the RWT hole for Sabatica Spartans? So, you know what? I think I'm gonna go with Shitty too, but I think it's gonna be a much closer game than it looks.
Yeah, but speaking about Akers, as I learned in the first week of the season, you can't trust any Rams running backs because who the hell knows who they're gonna put out there to play each week.
Fair enough.
So next up, we have the game of the week, and I didn't even look at this just because I know who I'm going to pick. Just because your 2 polls that you put up, and there was only one option. You have Storm versus Green Lightning, and I'm just going to go with Storm because you tried to put a poll up twice with both teams, and each time only Storm was there. So that's who I'm projecting to win.
Well, you could also look back at history, and Storm has owned Lucas. 6-2 lifetime, 750 win percentage against Lucas. It's been a cakewalk person every time. And let's face it, I don't know if Lucas taught us all a lesson about maybe you don't buy early because the season's very long and your guys can get hurt. And all his guys basically got hurt all season long. So, and that's why he's in the position he is. Obviously, Mark Andrews isn't going to be in for him. George Kittle, Devin White, and Chris Godwin on the bye does not help. I actually picked Lucas to win in the poll, but it's looking like Krista's going to win. I guess I'm just rooting for Lucas because he did buy early, and I think he deserves to get in maybe. But it would be nice to see Krista be competitive again this year too. But I am going to stick with my prediction of Lucas.
All right, that's fair. So let's switch over to Dynasty and talk about some rankings over there. Unless you have anything else talking about champions.
No, I would just say I don't think the points for race is over yet in the LSC. To be honest, I know Life Submits has a bit of an advantage there, but you never know what can happen. Any guy can get hurt right away, like a big point producer, and gets you 0 points, right? Like so, anything can happen on any given Sunday. So I don't think that one's over yet. But obviously, Deuce Bombers has taken home twice of the money that he put in, so that's good for him, getting a return on his investment this year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
forward to 2 more divisions next week.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem with that is, I mean, the age crew needs to score 85, 84, and 39.39 more points than Life Submits this week. So I don't see that happening.
Well, think about this. How many times do you see a team put up 300 and then you put up 200, right? That
This is
happens
true.
a lot.
This is true. This is very true. That is very true. Now let's switch over to Dynasty. See what's going on over there. So first up, let's talk about this Solomonic division. You have you take easily winning this one. I think everybody else. I mean, obviously, likely losers is still trying to stay in the playoff race. I honestly think there's some teams who are trying to get into the playoffs. Glad they're not playing Philly Miracle Men or Flaming Dragons. I think Flaming Dragons or Philly Miracle Men could have knocked a couple people from making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's a rebuilding year for you and Lucas there. And I think it's going to be, you guys, I'm excited for you, both of you, in the draft. I think it's an exciting draft to have in Dynasty. And, how that draft goes really determines your future. And, I thought my team was at least a couple of years away from being a contender. I got CD Lamb in the draft. He's definitely helped. But I think really it's a weaker division. And, I get to play those divisional opponents 6 times. Kind of feels maybe a little bit like the AFC East all those years with in the Pats. But likely losers is a legit team too, though. So yeah, it's gonna be. I'm glad I won the division. You guys are really competitive. So.
Yep, no, I agree. I agree. Likely loser is competitive, but we'll see how his predictions go for him this week.
Mm.
Next up, you have the Yamada division. You have Orange Crush, who is definitely going to win the division. And then you have You have Unnecessary Roughness, who I believe he can sneak in with some tiebreakers, with some losses to I think Likely Losers and Power of Pain and Curly Lamborghini. He needs some help, but he can definitely sneak in, I believe.
Yeah, well, Unnecessary Roughness is one of the worst. Like he showed why we need the IR spot. He won 6 in a row. He had Dak. He had a lot of good things going, and now he's lost 6 in a row. And obviously, if he would have had the IR spot, he could have been a lot more competitive this year. You're just not going to drop Dak, right? So it did put him in a tough spot. And Orange Crush, he's obviously it's going to be a huge game this week, which we'll talk about. But 5 straight wins and definitely looks like a powerhouse. And reason why, and about that later.
Yeah, I agree. And then you have the Howdon division. You have Zebras, Vlad Jr. crew, and No More all trying to get that division. I think Zebras keeps it, and obviously I've been talking about Zebras the last couple of weeks, and I think she's top 2. I think she makes the championship game this year too.
Yeah, she's having an awesome year, and I mean, I love seeing both the Chris's back up there being competitive too, especially since Chris has had such a bad year in the LEC. And no more. It's great to see his success in Tier 2 this year, too. I think he'd be a really great fit in the LSC as well. And the Illuminati there, he reminds me of, he's going to be the Cleveland Browns in that division for 5, 6 seasons like they were in the AFC North, like maybe even longer. Just look at the comparison. It's a joke. Even look at the points for. Like, if I was Robert, I don't even know what I would say. Like, what do you do from here?
Yeah.
But it's been a competitive division other than Robert, who I hope gets the perfect season.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game in a second. Next up, we have the Ming division. You have Bills Mafia, who is going to win the division. We'll talk about it, see if he's going to win the league money. And then you have Powers of Pain and Curly Lamborghini, who I just talked about, who are hoping to sneak into the playoffs in the eighth seed.
Yeah, good division again. I think Curly Lamborghini's done well to put himself in this position. If you guys recall his draft, it was an embarrassment. He was picking defenses too, I believe, like Milan did. And for Brian, he's going to reflect back and say to himself, should I have just dropped Jimmy G because it cost him a couple losses?
Yeah.
And Matt's been awesome all season, but the last 2 games he's lost, so it's got to raise some eyebrows. It looked like he was cruising to first place money. He's already taken the division bag, but first place money now is on the table, and also points for money. So, and then Justin, it's just been another down year here, another example of first to worst in his case.
Yeah. And speaking about points for money, I mean, Orange Crush is up by roughly 99 points right now. And I think
So again, not over.
not over, but I think Orange Crush cruises to that win.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Alrighty. So first up, we have the Lamborghini versus the Flaming Dragons. What was your thinking of setting this game as this matchup? In my eyes, I think the Illuminati should be playing Life Submit, and I think if he was playing Life Submit, I think the Illuminati actually gets the W. I just think 15 versus 16. Illuminati lost to both Flaming Dragons and Life Submit already. So I mean, what was your thinking of setting this matchup?
To be honest with you, I never put much thinking into the teams that weren't making the playoffs because the consolations to make, it's just not as important as Tier 2 and LOC, right? So I really just threw this matchup together by random, to be perfectly honest with you. And, it's not like I meant Robert to be 0-13, that's for sure. But it's definitely looking like he's going to be the perfect season. He'll go down in the history books. And I would say it's something to be proud of. Obviously, it's not. I know Robert's a good owner, so I know I'm bashing him a bit here, but he is a great owner and a loyal owner, and I know he'll rebound at some point. But Lucas is winning this one.
I agree. I think Lucas takes that win. Next up, we have Philly Miracle Men versus Life Submit. I'm just gonna throw my prediction. I think Philly Miracle Men are gonna win this game. I just like their. I mean, they've been projected to score under 200 points last 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and they've scored over 250, and then last week they scored over 220. So I think they're overachievers. For some reason, they can't lose when they want to lose. They want that better chance to get in the first overall pick, and they keep winning, and unfortunately, they're going to keep that streak alive this week.
I agree. I think you guys are going to keep winning, and I love the competitiveness. I know, you get a better vote or you get more votes, but really, who gives a shit, to be honest? Like, it's still a random draw, and, your career record, that's what I look at. I want to have some pride and finish off strong, and I think there's just too many question marks on Life Submit's roster. Galladay, Preston Williams, is he coming back? Swift's been hurt, Julio, and then Cam Newton at quarterback. Nah. You guys are winning that one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, everybody better hope that Philly Miraclemen don't get a running back and a second quarterback, where I think we know who's going to win the league next year.
I guess we'll see.
Next up, we have Adamus Prime and Sabaticus Spartans. I think this is actually going to be a closer match than NFL is predicting. It's one of those matches where the winner is just playing for pride at this moment, but I think just looking at the two teams, I just like, even though I believe Spartans has, yeah, Kamara, that I just like the running backs better for, Prime here. I also like their wide receivers better. I mean, even though Spartans has Hilton, Landry, and Parker. I think last week there was just kind of flukes for them putting up that many points. Where you have Tate, you have Hopkins. I mean, granted, he has Richie James playing, who hasn't done diddly squat since that 1 week where I traded for the Architect. But I just like Prime's team better, honestly.
Yeah, I had intentionally set this matchup together because these two teams were two of the top two teams last year, and it's obviously been a tale of two different stories for them this year. So, it's obviously time to kind of reflect back, hit the reset button, try to find out what the heck happened on both of these teams. And I think for Sabatica Spartans, AJ Dillon, I'm sure he was expecting more out of him as a draft pick. Van Jefferson, Gross Matos, these guys have done nothing. And then Aldemus Prime, it didn't help that, George Kittle got hurt, one of his best players. And I know he had draft problems. So both these teams have just looked like really garbage this year, but I'm going with Dusan. I think he's got a better roster.
I agree. And Spartans just dropped Deshaun Jackson. He's never going to play again. Next up, you have a game where we kind of talked about a couple of the players already. You have Agent Steel and Unnecessary Roughness. I really don't. I really think Agent Steel's team's just better in general. And as you said, Milan he needed the Dak Stock to get injured, and unfortunately he's running one quarterback right now. So you're running two. I mean, you have Watson who put up 4 touchdowns last week. He's probably going to get 2 or 3 this week against Indy. And then you have Mayfield playing Tennessee, where it could be 2, it could be 4. I mean, depending on what Titans defense shows up.
Yeah, I agree. I think again, just Milan's season's gone off the rails here. So I know he's probably looking forward to the rule coming in, and I'm sure everyone is. And for me, the thing I love about Dynasty now is it was the last format for me to add Nick Chubb. I got Nick Chubb in every single format. And, I am one of those guys who will pick guys off my team. And, when Nick Chubb scores a touchdown, it's just that much sweeter when I'm watching it on Sunday. And I'm hoping Nick Chubb scores a couple, and so does Hunt. And in that battle of obviously two of the best running games with Cleveland and Tennessee. And I think Cleveland and Chubb and Hunt do show up, and I beat Milan easily here.
I agree. Next up, you have Curly Lamborghini versus No More, and I'll let you start.
Yeah, Curly Lamborghini, no more. I think it's gonna be a tight one. I there could be a lot of tiebreakers at play here, and if there's a bunch of tiebreakers at 8-5, and Chris loses this game to Spend, who's going to become 8-5, that's not going to be in his favor, obviously. And I haven't looked at all the tiebreakers. Like if it comes to that, like might in the LOC 5 teams at 7-6 for one spot, I'll look at it then. But obviously, Kurt, for No More, he has to say to himself, "I got this is a must win." And for obviously for Curly, it is. And the thing I like about Curly's team is Devontae Adams, one of the best there at wide receiver, and Kyler Murray too, is a really good player. But obviously King Henry on the other side for No More. But just as I predicted in the matchup prior, I think Cleveland wins that running game against Tennessee, and King Henry doesn't have as big as a game. And I'm going with Curly here to beat No More.
That's a bold move, Cotton. I think with No More scoring 300 and 49 points last week, and he had C-Mac and Burrow on his bench. So basically, he was really literally running one quarterback to put up that many points. I don't know how you can go against the guy who scores that many points with his number one running back and one of his QBs on the bench. I mean, in that, I just think No More's IDPs are just a little better than Curly's. I mean, granted, Curly. I believe Curly has Dupree now on IR. Um, I don't know. I just think it's gonna be super close. I think it's gonna be down to 5 points. I just think No More finds a way to win. He needs to win to make the playoffs, and I think he finds a way.
Well, No More will also finally get his prize money anyway, no matter what happens to his season for being the People's Champ last year. So let's not forget that, Christian No More. We'll make sure you get that cash. I forget what the amount is, so we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, we won't talk about that because you changed the rules last year where I should have won the money, and you changed the rules, and everybody else got the money.
Whatever, man.
Next up, we have another good game, which is one of the games I'm actually excited to watch. You have Powers of Pain versus Likely Losers. I know last couple weeks I've been saying Likely Losers is definitely a loser. Not him, but his actual team. But I think they actually find a way to win this week. It's a must win for him in my eyes. He needs to keep that 8th overall. He's hoping Devin Cook can play this week. He's hoping he's playing Jacksonville. He should put up 2-3 touchdowns. I like his wide receivers are just a little bit better. I mean, granted, Powers of Pain has AJ Brown, Metcalf. I just like Diggs against San Francisco and anybody against Miami. I think the rest of the game's always going to be a shootout. And then you have Judy. I mean, if the Broncos can get a quarterback this week, which I think Locke's projected to come back and play, Judy might get 80 yards and a touchdown. He might get him some points there. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a close game, but I'm going to definitely go with Likely Losers as the winner this week.
Yeah, no, I kind of foreshadowed a bit there and said, will Brian regret not dropping Jimmy G earlier in the year? I think he will after this game because I agree with you. I think Likely Losers wins. And the reason being, you look on Brian's side, there's a lot of questionables. So obviously a lot of guys limping or hurting, which can never be a good thing. And then also just the simple fact that Likely Losers does have 2 quarterbacks stressed. I know Derek Carr looked like an absolute bum last week, but he's at the Jets this week. I mean, he's going to want to make himself look good, and he will make himself look good in that game. And I just think with all the guys limping on the 12th man side, if he was fully healthy, I'd like the 12th man side more. But I'm going Likely Losers here to win, and Powers of Pain could be out of the playoffs after this one.
I agree. Next up, we have another game I'm really excited for. You have Zebras. I'm excited to see how many points Zebras can score every week. I think that she always has the chance of scoring over 300 points, and it just excites me watching her team play. Honestly, like I think she's always projected to get like 230 to 250, and the next thing I know, she's up over 300 points. I'm like, well, there you go. There's probably our champion, at least into the championship game where she probably plays Orange Crush, and that would be a hell of a game.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't jumped on a hype train as much for Susie's team, but the reality is for Susie's team, she added Jonathan Taylor in round 1. She added Zach Moss in round 2. She added Antonio Gibson in round 3. I mean, in a dynasty draft, it doesn't get much better than adding those 3. I mean, Gibson's a top 5 running back this season in fantasy. I mean, yep. Can't nail a better draft pick and nailed that one in the 3rd round. And I think Vlad Jr. Crew might get in the playoffs, but I honestly think he's one of the biggest pretenders that would go in the playoffs. It just hasn't seemed like he's been really all that great recently, and maybe I'm just not paying attention or I'm kind of undermining his team, but I see him being a big pretender.
I don't know about pretender, but I don't think I think I think he'll come in around the 8th seed, where his team is good enough to be at, not better, and then he could build on that for next year.
Yeah, I'm going Suze to win this one though.
Perfect. Next up, we have the game of the week. We have Orange Crush versus Bills Mafia. and I'm gonna put it right out there. I love Orange Crush's team, just like I love Zebra's team. Adrian, I mean, Adrian and I have made trades in LOC a whole lot, and his team, and I'm just impressed by his team. I mean, you have you have Mahomes, you have Aaron Jones, you have Higgins. I mean, he's making good picks. He's got decent rookies. His Pittman, Pascal. I mean, then he also has Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what two better combination of 1-2 quarterbacks? You have Rodgers and Mahomes. I mean, either one of them I'd love to have on my team, honestly. And then you have, I mean, his, I got.
I was just gonna say you're right. I mean, Mahomes and Rogers, I think, are 1-2 in quarterback fantasy ratings. So
Yeah, and then on the other side, I mean, you have Stafford, who I have in LSC as a bum. I think I started him one game. But he does have Josh Allen, who's also another player that I would love to put with Herbert and not have to pick a quarterback next year. But I just think Chase Edmonds is not a number one running back in Arizona. Any running back for in New England is mediocre. And as you said earlier, Akers is starting to take over more carries in the Rams' offense, where Henderson, he's going to start going down. And then you have Marquise Brown. I think if he didn't catch that long touchdown pass, he would have like what 3 catches tops. I think Bills Mafia. I don't want to say he's a pretender, but I don't think he is as good as his record makes him look to be.
yeah, you know what? I'm looking at the matchup, and I think both teams are really good. And I think problem with Adrian's team, he has weaknesses. Like outside the big two quarterbacks, though, Zach Pascal doesn't threaten me. Malcolm Brown doesn't threaten me. Duke Johnson, his role's going to get reduced. And Andrews is going to be on the COVID. I think going for the bag, Adrian might be able to keep that points for bag, but I think he loses the first place bag here. I think he's in a worse spot in this one. And I think Bills Mafia wins. I think Josh Allen has a big game against San Francisco. And, Stafford against Chicago, we'll see. I mean, Chicago is usually a pretty good defense. But I think it's the rest of the roster that I like better on Bills Mafia just for this week. I mean, if Mark Andrews is there, maybe that's different. But going with Bills Mafia here.
Yeah, we're definitely split on that one. I'm going Orange Crush. But I mean, one thing to point out. I mean, it's Thursday night. We pushed back, this press conference one day, and waivers haven't processed yet. Anything could change with waivers processing.
It's true. I mean, there's a couple of names out there, but I think at this point in the season, there's nothing left on the waiver wire. Like maybe a DB, that you need to plug and play. But for the most part, like, I'm kind of glad because I'd get up at 4 a.m. Pacific time here to do waivers because you guys out east always have the advantage. So it was exhausting. So I'm happy I'm able to sleep in a little bit more now because it's just not as big as a deal at this point in the year.
Why are you getting up at 4 a.m.? Just do them like the day before, and then see who's left.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, exactly. You got to get up early, and because there's always somebody who's left on that waiver wire, and that's what Brandon and the Architect's good at. I don't know if you noticed, but he's on that waiver wire early, and he's adding that last player.
Yeah.
And I also think James Robinson, who he added as waivers, and I immediately picked him up in Dynasty in Tier 2. That's not James Robinson, fourth best running back in fantasy this year. So waivers win you the league. There's no doubt in my mind.
100%. So Brandon, and when I send you an email with a link in it, make sure to click on it. I'm not sending you spyware, I promise. I need to know who you're picking up so I can get them instead. Well, that's all.
Yeah, man. Well,
I was gonna say that's all.
Shut her down. I think. I'm looking forward to the Flex 13. I hope everyone else is. I mean, let's face it, the playoffs start now for a lot of teams, and it's going to be awesome. And it's to me, before the playoffs, it's the most exciting week of the season. So here we are, and good luck, everyone.
Yeah, everybody good luck. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we don't have to wait till Wednesday again.
Yeah, exactly. Have a good one, bro.
You too, man. I'll talk to you later.
Go hot.
Bye.
Go hot.